everybody. Welcome to the Becket Art Center. We're here celebrating our show downstairs, and it's a lengthy title, so I'm going to use my cheat sheet. The second annual Berkshire LGBTQ plus Pride Art Exhibit, Amplifying Queer Creativity. This is the second time we've hosted this show. The show is put on through QMOB, Queer Men of the Berkshires, and I have been personally working with them to help set up the show, call for artists, and putting on this artist panel. This is the second time that we've been able to put on this show, and we're really happy to bring this diverse set of artists and interested folks here to the Art Center. This is not the only show by any means that we do. The works you see up in this room are from one of our 5-person shows that we generate through a general call. It's open to anybody. And this show will be switched out for a new one next week, and every 2 weeks we have new shows on display here at the Becket Art Center. But now is the time to celebrate our LGBTQ plus artists with this panel. I also want to mention that part of this project was funded by the Berkshire Taconic Community Foundation and Berkshire Queer History Project, who are also going to be doing some filming of queer stories after the talk tonight. So if you're interested, please come to some of our filmmakers in the back, and they'll be happy to set you up to take down some of your history. With that, I'm going to send it off to our moderators for this event. Thank you for coming. And I'll pass it on to you.
Awesome. Thanks so much, John.
Hi, folks. Thanks for coming. I'm Lisa Slavin. I'm one of the co-moderators, and I also have 3 pieces in the art show, and I'm really inspired to be with a group of queer artists. I think this is a first to me to do. I've been with other artists before to be this theme. I'm really, really grateful. And
I'm Rachel Kaufman. I also have 2 paintings in the art show. I'm excited to learn more about my fellow artists in the show. There was supposed to be a 4th panelist, but Autumn Mitchie could not make it today, unfortunately.
But their work is awesome too. I suggest you check it out downstairs. What we're going to do is introduce our artists on the panel, and then we'll ask them some questions too that they'll all kind of go through and answer. And then we have a couple questions that will just be what I like to call, or what you might have heard, is popcorn style. So whoever wants to pop up and answer, or you can pass. So we might move more into like a vibe, a conversation, and we'll see where it all goes. But in terms of introductions, I'd love to introduce Saemi, who is a New York City-based Korean photographer. She's been working for over 10 years in photography. She poetically explores emotions, creating narratives where delicate beauty and deconstruction coexist. In her photographs, Saemi retells the story of Swan Lake to show 2 women reclaiming a story that had left them divided. She's coming all the way from Brooklyn.
Yeah.
She came for the opening too, so awards for.
It's my 3rd time coming here.
3rd time coming here. This is artistic commitment. Thank you.
I'm going to introduce Pops. Pops is an artist living in Hillsdale, best known for his photography. The piece he has in the show comes from his series Reinventing Rockwell, where he reinvented the paintings of Norman Rockwell. He has received critical acclaim for this work. It's featured in national media, museums, and he is touched by being able to inspire people and create a more inclusive world.
Amen. And last but not least, we have Jacob Clayton. Jacob is a self-taught artist from Northampton, Massachusetts. In 2019, he began using visual media as a therapeutic process, aiding him to come out of the closet and pursue a life in the arts. His work serves as a journey to gather and assemble pieces of his life. He uses photography, video, and mixed media to document his experience and critique society's treatment of queer culture and individuals. And because we're all about sharing the brilliant work that we're doing, Jacob would also like to extend an invite to view some of his other work currently on view at the Northampton Center for the Arts, including the East Coast debut of his short film, The Clayton Effect, which is an official selection of the San Francisco Transgender Film Festival. That's awesome.
Thank you.
Thank you all for being here.
Thank you.
Oh, okay. Do you want to explain how we're doing the question?
Yes, we're going to go through and folks, whatever the first couple questions, I think we'd ask everyone to chime in, and then we'll switch to, and I'll call it like popcorn style. So whoever's moved to speak. And that's what we have.
All right.
Okay.
So for our first question, we have, in what ways are you inspired by queer art or culture?
They're all looking at me.
Well, 1, 2, 3,
I'll go. When I started this practice of portraiture, I started reading about portraits in the past and, found very quickly, since the beginning of photography, people wanted to get their pictures taken and people wanted to see themselves in photos. And I saw all kinds of queer people in photographs and even some transgender men, but not that many. And I thought, as a transgender man and a gay man trying to come to terms with my identity, trying to come out of the closet, trying to use art sort of as a means of self-expression, self-portraiture throughout the years seemed like a really interesting way to go, and turning the camera on myself. And people in my past had done that. I found work by someone like Claude Cahoon, who was, I'm not sure how they would identify themselves by today's words. I would call them a transgender, maybe gender non-conforming person, is what I would call them. And they were pretty much the only person that I found doing work like that I was thinking of doing. And so I found queer art and queer culture and the history as a way to put myself out there to show myself as a transgender man, and so people could see what that's really like. And so I think that's how it's informed me.
Would you just restate the question for me so I can...
Yeah.
Okay.
So in what ways are you inspired by queer art or culture?
Okay, I want to go back to when I was a kid, when there was no queer anything available, where I felt completely just non-existent, or if I did exist, it was in a negative way. But not only because I was queer, but also because I was black. So things that whenever something queer or gay did show up, it was like the most wonderful milkshake, with manna from heaven. And as I look back, the first real queer things I saw were movies, things like Fellini's Satyricon and Death in Venice, and they were just they were the most wonderful things that made you feel that, maybe not in your country because these were foreign films, but there was breath out there was life, there was acceptance. So when I started my own art career, I just first started doing things that most artists do, like portraits, landscapes, pictures of pets and things like that. And then one day I had the idea to do new versions of Norman Rockwell's iconic works. It just turned out that I run a salon in Stockbridge, which is right across the street from where Norman Rockwell's house was, where he died. And at that point, the building that I own was Finnerty's funeral home, and so they brought his body into our building, and he was involved in our staff room. I had no idea of this for many years, but then one day one of my pictures looked like a Rockwell, and I'm going, how did that happen? I just had no idea. Could I do it on purpose? So I did a couple of tests, and they came out good, and I said, I'll just go around and I'll just redo all of, the most famous pictures here and see how that works. And I was very scared that somebody would find out about it. I kept it very, very quiet. And just redoing them wasn't enough. I had to really bring them up to date. So I wanted to show an inclusive world. So I had some gay characters. One of my favorites is the marriage license, where I have a gay couple, a lesbian couple, getting their marriage license. The one I have in this show is Saint Joan, based on a Rockwell image called The Girl in the Mirror, I think. Yeah, The Girl in the Mirror. Anyway, it's this little girl, like pubescent girl is looking in the mirror at herself, and she's thinking, she has a magazine where she wants to be a movie star. There's a movie star's image. And she's thinking how she could be if she was a movie star. And in my version, the little girl wants to be a Boy Scout. But I also I was having women play roles of authority, so like a firewoman, you know. I was switching it up and bringing it up to date. And my idea was that maybe, you know, if they really liked it, I would tell the Rockwell Museum they'd let me have a little show in their basement one day, have my friends over, and how much fun that would be. Sorry, I hit the table. Anyway.
I told you don't hit the table.
Yeah, I know. So we actually did my first show at Sohn Fine Art. Cassandra Sohn thought it was a really good idea. And next thing I knew, I was on all these magazine and newspaper covers. And it really struck a chord with the community that was bigger than I ever thought. I mean, CBS came to my house. So CBS Sunday Morning came to interview me, and I'm in the New York Times and the Boston Globe. So it really kicked off my career and made me known as somebody who just wants to show an inclusive world. For whether you're a woman or a man or black or white or gay or whatever, we all belong.
Thank you.
I'm often inspired by other queer artists. Their work is very original and has a strong sense of identity. For example, I relate strongly to queer music and I listen to it every day. And it often inspires the image what I want to create.
Awesome. I am just touched to be here with you all. I'm thinking about it's cool to be with artists, but then with queer artists and what we're trying to do with the work and kind of what barricades are we trying to knock down and who are we trying also to invite in. So thank you all. I'm going to move a little bit into the artistic process, and can you describe your artistic process, inspiration? How do you get to work?
I get to work. For me, it's like almost like this. I see the piece almost in my head, or I have this vision of what I want it to be, and it kind of appears and it almost never fails, and then it really becomes a process of how to get there. And a lot of the times I have no idea how to get there. I'm doing these self-portraits, but a lot of them involve some costumes. Some of the pieces I have downstairs, there's wigs. And I did like a Marilyn Monroe sort of remake, and I spent months looking for the perfect wig, and so some of the process gets weird like that, but sometimes it doesn't. But it always starts with a flash of I see, maybe it's a play on words, maybe it's a different type of image, like you're saying you see Norman Rockwell's, and then you see this different type of world depicted in it, and so a lot of times I'll see an image, maybe something from popular culture, something imagery. And then I'll want to see myself, as a transgender man reflected in it. And so it's a question of how do I get there? And then it always starts with a picture of myself. Or some of my films, it might start with film, but for the most part, at least the work I have here, it always starts with a photograph and then goes from there and gets taken into Photoshop normally, and it goes from there. And I do a lot of research as well. A lot of my pieces I'm using, I have a piece downstairs, the Marlboro Man, and when I was a kid, the Marlboro Man, he was considered the essence of masculinity. It was one of the most successful advertising campaigns in the history of the United States, the Marlboro Man. And I remember just absolute agony knowing how badly I wanted to be him and that I was him. Mm-hmm. But I was in this little girl's body, and everyone's told, no, you are not a boy. And so there was such pain there. So to be able to then see myself and fully actualize myself as someone who almost looks like the Marlboro Man, if I may say so, it's really, it's quite liberating, and so that's the process. It's this flash of something I want to try to see or show, and then just getting there, and that's pretty much how it works. Yeah.
My process, I work in a lot of different mediums. I write poetry, I do imagery, and I also do music. I've been doing it for a very long time. I started when I was a teenager, and now I'm halfway through my 70s. So the process has always been the same in that something comes in from somewhere, and I see it, and I want to bring it onto to the earth plane. I actually believe that every single thing that there is in this planet has a soul, has its own identity and its own consciousness. So even this bottle of water came on the other side. It wanted to be brought into this world, so it came to a factory and then was delivered here, and now we have this bottle of water. And for me, it's like their songs and their images, and they all want to be brought into this world. And I'll see it, and I can't rest until it takes form or some shape. So I actually feel like I'm being used sometimes. Most recently, I woke up thinking of a girl who I met for 1 hour when she was 7 years old, 40 years ago. And I had to reach this girl. It was just like I was in tears for this girl. Her mother had died, and then her father had also died. But for some reason, and I had not seen her in 40 years, but I had to reach her, and in the process of trying to find her, a song came into my head, basically complete. And I got up at 1:30 in the morning because I was in bed, I couldn't sleep, and by 2 o'clock the entire song was written, which was like magical. It usually takes me quite a while to get a song start to finish. Anyway, so the song is called Love Lives, and it's your love still lives in me, and it's about someone who's passed away, but you still feel the love. And what I realized what was going on was that her father, who I was just casual friends with 40 years ago, was using me as a messenger to get to his daughter. And he sent me this song and also this incredible urge to find her. She was living in Hawaii. And I found her on Facebook. She hadn't changed her name. And when we connected, I said, I love your father, and I just had to tell you that, And she started crying, and it was just like this big emotional thing. So this person who I met when she was 7 years old, I spent 1 hour with her, walking with her in the party, her father in the park. The song came to me, and we reconnected, and wouldn't you know, she lived in Hawaii, and here we are in the Berkshires. We both had tickets to go to San Francisco in 2 weeks. So we connected that way. But that's just an extreme example of how these artworks and these feelings come from the other side, and they use me as a medium to make them come to life. So, I mean, there's many different techniques I use. I use photographic techniques, I use musical techniques, I use writing, literary techniques. The technique doesn't matter. It's just what is going to give this entity on the other side a life here on the planet. And that's after all these many years of being an artist, that's what I realize is going on.
My work is usually inspired by a question or a wide range of emotions. I'm also inspired by different art forms. I pull from many different sources and imagine what kind of image I want to create and how I want to express it before sketching out my ideas. After that, I collaborate with other artists in order to develop the images.
Thank you. This one, so you have to dress them and costume them and position them and photograph them as part of the process. Awesome. Thank you.
Okay, so for the next couple of questions, we say you don't have to. Everyone doesn't have to answer all of them. If you want to answer all of them, you can. You can kind of do popcorn style dialogue, however it comes out.
Whatever's natural feels natural.
Yeah, whatever feels natural.
Yeah.
All right, so our first of these questions are, what made you apply to this call, and what does it mean to you to be displaying your art in a queer art show?
They're all still looking at me. But I'm told that I don't have to answer them all. But they're still looking at me. I can give a quick answer on that. I applied to this. June is Pride Month, and so it's like there's a million Pride calls, and so one of the things that I'm trying to do, at least at this point, is support places that'll support queer artists. And so one of the ways I feel like I can support places that will have queer shows is to submit to them, and try to participate and do things like this and try to get my work out there. And I've moved to the western part of Massachusetts. I grew up in Massachusetts, but I only lived in the western part of the state a few years, and so it feels like also a nice way to get to know fellow artists and communities. And I can't believe you're in your 70s. Are you kidding me?
I have a great hairstylist.
You definitely do. So it's just it's a lovely way to meet other people and just to be able to get my work out there and be seen. And I do appreciate, like you said, Lisa, at the beginning, the chance to sit with other queer artists. It's not an opportunity we get very often, not often enough. So.
Well, I was just honored to be invited. I cry all the time. It's because it's the empathy part. I'm empathetic. I'm very sensitive. I'm sensitive to all kinds of vibrations and stuff. But what I'm sensitive to right now is the fact that when I grew up, there was no queer art exhibit. There was no Pride parade. I walked in the very first Pride parade in 1969. And so anytime I get to show myself as my real, authentic self, I'm going to be there.
I applied because I wanted my work to engage with wider audience. For me, it's about building community. The queer community is like family to me. Being able to share with like-minded people while listening and learning from their different experience gives me an opportunity to further develop and grow.
Thank you all. I'm getting teary too. It's a PS. Because I can feel myself being more inspired and feeling stronger being in community with you up here. So thank you. Let's go into a question about being a queer artist. So I'm curious if you think there's a difference between being a queer artist who makes art and a queer artist who makes queer art. Second part of that question, happy to repeat, is what do you think makes a work of art queer?
I know they're all looking at me, so I don't even have to, I can already feel it. I can feel his energy. For me, obviously anyone can make art. People do make art. When queer people make art, I guess they're queer artists. But for me, my work is just completely embedded in the transgender experience, and my art practice, really, I think is at this point a sort of a means of survival. It's really one of the only ways that I can make any kind of sense out of my life's experience, and to try to bring the invisible to light. And I choose to disclose as transgender. I choose to disclose as gay because I feel like if I don't, then I'm perpetuating a life where people like you have no one to see. I spent a lot of my time in life too without. I went 20-something years without hearing the word transgender, and to not have the words for who you even are, for almost a quarter of your life is it's kind of a mind-boggling experience. And so, me being transgender is just so intricately, my story is so intricately involved in my art. It sort of defines me as a queer artist, and my art is queer as well, I think. And in terms of like, what makes queer art, that part of your question, I guess I feel like anything that speaks to the queer experience or speaks to, I guess, queer culture, queer history, or even queer stereotypes, even people that are confronting, things through art that way, I guess, and any art that reaches anyone, who's queer and who might feel alone or lonely, I think maybe also could be classified as queer art, I guess, in my book. So.
I'm queer, but I don't just go as a queer artist, I don't obsess with the queer side of myself. I'm an American. I'm black. I'm a father and a grandfather. I have all these aspects of myself, and at one moment to the next, I'll be expressing any different aspect of my identity. So I'm happy to be a queer artist and be in a queer show, but I'm also happy to be in the State House of Massachusetts doing, showing my new versions of Norman Rockwell's work, or just to be singing a song without any sexuality or any kind of a agenda behind it, other than just expressing my feelings. So, what makes queer art queer? I would say it's the subject matter. Unless somebody is just so strident about being queer that they infuse queerness into everything they do, like you could say Warhol's Marylands are queer art, but are they really? They're just basically what was happening at that time, So I would say I'm proud to be a queer artist and in a queer show, but I think if you went through my catalog, you wouldn't necessarily land on the queerness of me.
Yeah, I think, the other part of that question, we were also like, do you think that someone who doesn't identify as queer can make queer art?
Why not? Queer subject art, but not queer as an expression of the artist. But yeah, anybody who did a photo of a gay marriage and something like that, that's going to be, obviously, it's going to be a work of queer art, no matter who took the picture.
Yeah, I mean, I agree with that. I think it's a question, it comes down to representation, like you're saying. If someone who isn't transgender is taking a photo of me, is that different than a transgender person taking a photo of me, or of me taking a photo of myself, How does that change when the artist and the subject are one and the same? It's an interesting question. Certainly people have taken and do take pictures of gay people, queer people, trans people, but do they represent that experience? I think is where the question comes in. What's their point of view? Looking in on something as opposed to inviting someone into something that's your own. Mm-hmm. So it's an interesting question.
Thanks, Jacob.
Personally, I don't think there is much difference between two. While they often overlap, I believe that queer art centers queerness, while a queer artist might create art that isn't necessarily centered around queerness while the themes are present. For example, I am queer. I do not exist solely as a queer person. I'm a girl who likes fashion, and I am Korean who is constantly trying to learn and challenge herself to see the world outside of just Seoul.
Thank you. Expansive answer. Thank you.
Okay. Yeah, how does living in and around the Berkshires affect you as an artist and a queer artist? I guess I don't know if you would. Yeah. Okay. Sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, well, I mean, it's interesting. I would consider myself a city person, and I love the city. I there's so much going on, and so much stimulation, and so much inspiration, so much diversity. It seems like it's always been my sweet spot. But when I moved out here, what I realized is when you take a lot of that away, and a lot of the distraction and noise and just all those stimulations, what it allows you to do, especially when you're out in nature, is connect more inward and with yourself. And for me, in this art practice that's been really sort of therapeutic, it's been a real blessing. And I think people, my dream would be to have like a studio in New York, and then a studio like somewhere out here, and like people, go back and forth. So I have a little bit of country, a little bit of rock and roll, because I think that, it's nice to be. I would love to be able to be in New York and try to show work there more and such. But when I'm in a quiet space and able to connect with nature and really ground myself, I think then I'm really able to I think do my best work. And so I think that's part of why some people. Artists are always known to come out to these beautiful places to create. And I think there's something to it, about connecting with nature and the quiet. There's got to be a reason that artists tend to go, musicians as well, to quiet spaces to make work. So there's something about the Berkshires, I think, that I don't know how it informs my queerness, except that otherwise, I can say that what's interesting is to find small towns and rural areas that support queer people. This isn't something that historically has happened throughout America, and it doesn't still happen in many places in America. And so, to come out in a place that's a low population and rural and find a queer art exhibit and a queer art panel, to me, is really wonderful. And it's something really unique, I think, to part of this part of the country, in my opinion.
Well, the Berkshires is one of the best places any artist could ever come, because it's full of people who enjoy and appreciate, and not only that, but like to buy art. And there's a lot of competition, but there's also a lot of opportunity. It's like everybody comes up here, they finish banking, they want to be a painter, right? So they start painting. And I was in a situation where I'd done all these different kinds of artwork my whole life and never made it big, so I stopped doing artwork to get a professional thing going so I'd have some retirement money. And I was away from my art life for a really, really long time, totally miserable, no matter how much money I made, how big my house was, how big my car was. I was totally miserable. So then at one point I said, I've got to get back into artwork, and I was going to do photography. And then I discovered Photoshop and how you could use digital processes to really make art, and not only make art, but make art that was duplicatable and publishable. With social media and stuff like that, everything had changed. One of the reasons I stopped doing oil painting is that, where do you keep them? It's like, what do you do with them? And then also, once you sell it, it's gone. You put your heart and soul into this canvas, and it is gone. And the little Polaroid you have, that's not the picture, So then all of a sudden, digital is here, and you could do the picture and show it that same night and have it and make 100 copies, and people, you would never lose it. You could have it and give it away any different size. And I said, oh, wow, this is it for me. So I started doing these digital portraits and stuff like that. And then I was just starting, and I had a few pictures. And I went to Lauren Clark Fine Art, and I showed her one of my pictures, and she says, oh my God, you've got to have a solo show right away. I said, well, I've only got 6 pictures. Give me 6 months. Maybe I'll have enough for a show. And bam, just like that, I had my own solo exhibition at a really good gallery on Railroad Street, So these opportunities are here in the Berkshires. Not only that, I have a hair salon, and a day spa, and the clients will come in and I say, oh, look, I did this, I did that. And they go, you did that? I want you to do portraits of my 2 kids. And I go, really? And then people were so supportive. Everything blossomed for me here the way it just never could have happened in a big city. It just never, ever would have happened. And it's just a wonderful, wonderful place. There's beauty everywhere, the natural beauty. I started out with landscapes because there is beauty everywhere. And I would say, anybody who's really, no matter what you want to do, I mean, there's performing opportunities, there's writing opportunities, there's spoken word, there's publishing, there's everything is here. So if you can manage the winters, and if you've got a partner, because it can be pretty lonely if you're single, especially if you're queer. No, not even if you're queer, but I mean, single people, get online, because it's it can be a little rough, but if you can take it, it's one of the best places you could possibly be as an artist.
Yep. We're going to go on to our next question, popcorn style, which is, what do you wish to do next with your art? What do you wish for the future? What's cooking?
Me, I wish for a solo show. That's what I'm going to try to go for next. I am like, I think I've developed enough work, and I've got some different portfolios, and I think I have enough confidence, and I've shown a lot of places, but it's been group shows so far, and so I'm going to try to build up my confidence and start putting myself out there as my next phase. But in terms of work I'm working on, I've got some really great stuff. I'm really excited. I can't really. I wish I had a couple things I wish I could announce, but I can't really. But I'm working on stuff and continuing on with my self-portraits and sort of my looking back at some cultural references and things of that nature. And I'm also looking at other film opportunities and partnering with a photographer on, I took some photos of myself with another photographer pre-transition 26 years ago, as a project, and I don't think that anyone's ever documented a sort of before and after of a transgender man's journey over the course of almost 3 decades now. And so I'm hoping to try to revisit that project and collaborate back with her to try to sort of take after photos almost 30 years after transition. And I think that'll be an interesting project.
I would love to see that show.
Thank you so much. I would love to have you there. I would love to have it happen.
Okay.
Yeah.
So thank you.
We'll be there.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
So, it's really interesting because I just explained how digital photography came in, and it was just so great for me because I didn't have to store all these canvases and they'd be reproducible, and I came up with a way to make a photograph look like an oil painting to the point where people won't believe it's not an oil painting. So all this was so exciting when I started like 14, 15 years ago, and now all these filters are on everybody's phone. It's just like, what? I developed all this skill and all this time. Now everybody does it just like this. 12-year-olds are doing it. So it's like, what am I going to do now? So now I'm really, really excited about AI animation. And I've done a series of the Rockwells, making them come to life. So Rockwell Comes to Life is my new series. One of my animations is accepted at the Berkshire Film Festival this year, and I'm looking forward to having a show in the Rockwell Museum where you these pictures, boom, they just start moving and talking, and they show you the before and after of what that moment that Rockwell did was all about. So Rosie the Riveter goes from here to eating her sandwich, and you see her go into the factory and actually rivet on airplanes, on fighter jets. And let me see what else. So Freedom from Fear, where the family is putting their kids to bed in America while the war rages in Europe, and there's a newspaper that says, Blitzkrieg falls over Germany, whatever, or London. I take that and I have the parents put the kids to bed, and then they look at the newspaper, and then you go over and you actually see the bombs dropping on London. So it's really exciting, and I get to do it all by myself, and that's going to be a really great show. Meanwhile, I just want to do my own movies. So I'm taking my poetry and I'm turning it into short films. All by myself, and they're totally beautiful, and it's so exciting because nobody has done this before. It's a whole new art form, AI animation, that one person can do what it would take a Disney studio to do 10, 20, 30 years ago. As a matter of fact, it didn't even exist 30 years ago. So I'm really thrilled about this process, and it's scary because, I have this whole reputation as somebody who does canvases, and am I ever going to make any money doing these little 2-3 minute videos, or even a 30-minute or 20-minute video? I don't know. But the images are there. They want to be born. The movie wants to take life. And that's what happens. It's not going to be over until those things materialize on this planet.
I wish for my work to have even just a small impact on changing the world through representation. I want to see queer individuals and queer narratives become more visible and represented in mainstream media. And honestly, my dream is to see the play Swan Lake adapted into a sapphic romance.
I would like to see Swan Lake adapted into a sapphic romance too. Yes, please. And maybe Rosie the Riveter.
But she dies at the end, right?
Oh.
Do they have to die at the end? That was the problem with all these gay movies back in the day.
Yeah.
Shirley MacLaine and Audrey Hepburn, they had this great affair, and then
You get to take it wherever you want to take it. So yeah.
How are we doing for time?
We're doing great.
Okay. Or is it
Are
we
we
under?
No, we're perfect. We're queer and perfect.
We are perfect. I agree.
Well, this was the final question we had. So, what is a message that you want to share with the audience?
Ooh. What haven't I said that's deep and meaningful? I think, I guess honestly, I guess my message really is that, again, I'm here speaking mostly as a transgender man on the transgender male experience. And, I think that, when one goes through life concealing a stigmatized identity, as the years and the decades go by, it chips away at oneself and one's mental health and really one's ability to make their way through the world, and art has provided me this incredible freedom, to be able to make some sense of my life, show myself for who I am, feel as if I'm actually able to walk through this world as the person I've known I am all along. And I think that, I invite, I guess my message is to, invite people into queer art and queer life all year round, and as a sort of fact of life that we've always existed. We all know this, and specifically with my work, I would love for people to just take a look at the life of a transgender man, and I welcome you into it, and just to see what I'm all about.
Could you restate the question once again?
Yeah. What is a message that you want to share with the audience?
Okay, with you people right here, whether you're queer or not, especially if you are queer, show up. Whenever there's an opportunity to be your authentic self, embrace it. It's the most important thing you can do, is to let others know who you are, so they can relate to you and be themselves and be proud of themselves. And we've come so far in my lifetime. It's discouraging, but also empowering to see how people are reacting to us at this moment. And that's not only queer people, it's also black people. It's also Latinos. We're all trying to be marginalized again, but we have to show up any way we can and every way we can, and be proud and be forceful and don't take no for an answer.
was upset after watching Swan Lake at Lincoln Center in New York because it felt like our queer stories were intentionally erased rather than naturally included. Although the performance was reimagined through a more feminist lens and presented up to Act 2, I used photography to recreate the ending that wasn't shown. Through this, I wanted to reclaim the absence of queerness and give it space in the narrative. Because I believe many people might have felt similarly, I wanted to create this body of work in order for us to share our feelings and create a place for both resonance and empathy.
Thank you all. Is there a message you want to share with the audience?
A message with my work. I appreciate what all of you have said. I appreciate you mentioning also like right now and what's going on, and so it's really great that we have this show. I hope everyone will, if you haven't already, take a look at the show downstairs. It's artist work. A message you want to send?
I think I was just struck by listening to you all about this term called self-actualization, which is becoming who you are. But self-actualization doesn't happen, it's not a selfish act, and it doesn't happen solo. Like, we all inspire each other and we all evolve together. And so I'm really grateful to hear your words today. And I think that part of being queer to me is about just trying to become more of who I truly am, but to do that in community. So I would invite anybody of any orientation to just be more of who you are, along the lines of what Pops was saying too. And super appreciative for your time today, and for Sean and the Becket Arts Center for hosting, and for the folks who have attended and the videographers, because I feel like we've pulled together in community to reflect upon life themes that are crucially important.
Yeah, thank you very much, the moderators.
Thank you so much.
Both of you.
Thanks, yeah.
I'm very proud and grateful to be included in this important event.
I'm so grateful you could all come. Thank you for bringing your voices to us.
Thank you.
Cool. All right.
Questions?
Oh yeah, open for questions from the audience.
Don't make the audience raise their hand.
I have a question. So, as exhibitions curator here, I show a lot of work, talk to a lot of artists about showing the work. Is there any thoughts or anecdotes you might have for presenting your work? You made the piece, now it has to go up on a wall. Are you going to frame it or not? That kind of final preparation before it is seen by the world. Is there any insights that you have on that? Then we all have kind of different ways of presenting your work.
I mean, should we keep this order? I can just say I definitely do. I mean, you saw I have some things are on canvas, some things are on wood. What else did I give you? Something on metal. And so, yeah, I do love to print in different ways. I think it's kind of like Pops was saying, when you can print your work in different sizes, in different ways, it opens up to a lot of different possibilities. And I love to experiment with printing on wood, printing on metal, printing on canvas, and different things like that. So, and I know galleries have always different specifications, but I appreciate the Becket Arts Center for accommodating my wood pieces and metal and everything else, and it is nice when people do that. I do give it some thought on presentation.
I'm a creator, and I love the creation process, and as soon as it's done, I hate everything else. I can't stand printing it. I can't stand framing it. I can't stand putting it on a wall. I can't stand signing it. I can't stand any of it whatsoever. Right now, I've got at least 12 of the pictures that were in the Norman Rockwell Museum crowding out my gym at home. It's like, I can't throw them out. I need them for another exhibition someday. But what am I going to do with them? Am I going to pay $250 a month or more just to put them in a storage someplace so I can have my gym back? So it's like, no, I don't like any of that stuff. I like putting it online. I like showing people, and I love the prints, but I just like somebody else to take care of all of that.
You need an assistant.
Yeah. Well, thank God I'm represented by a gallery, so that is a great help.
I personally have a preference for my photography to be printed. So if you saw my work downstairs, it is printed on matte paper, and you cannot see yourself.
Mm-hmm.
And it is very important to me.
Yeah, that frame you have is amazing.
I was gonna say, yeah.
Thank you.
I think I'm curious to Sean's question too, just about, you all referred to some multimedia things, and so to me, for a gallery, it would be really interesting to be like, oh, if I wanted to hear one of your songs, could there be a QR code that would go along with it, or even if you wanted to pick one of the pieces from Swan Lake that we could just really sit and listen. So anyways, I guess I'm curious about what multimedia might look like in a gallery format like that.
Well, when I was at the State House of Massachusetts, QR codes had just come out. So I put a QR code on the tag underneath each picture, and I made a video. So when you're looking at the picture, you just do the QR code, and you could look on your phone and see the story of how did I create it and what's it about, and that was really exciting. It was a lot of work though, but it was really great that here's a picture, you could actually go dive into it right there on the spot. So I love multimedia. I love all kinds of stuff. I love too many things. If I stuck with just painting, I probably would be a big star right now, but it wasn't meant to be.
I love the multimedia too. I was really excited because when I did I've done a few short films, and when I did my film, The Clayton Effect, it showed at the San Francisco Transgender Film Festival in 2021, but it was during COVID. And so it only showed online, and so I probably wouldn't have made it out to San Francisco anyway, but still it was like the chance to see it on a screen was kind of taken away. I was like, I shouldn't have submitted it this year. but right now it's showing at the Northampton Center for the Arts, and they've got it set up like on this big TV screen, and there's a couch in front of it. And so like when I went to the opening night, like I saw people like sitting there watching my film and just laughing, and they have it looping. It's a pretty amazing experience to be able to see something like that. That was the first time I've ever experienced anything like that. I thought they were going to do a QR code that people could scan, but they ended up being able to get like a TV, and so it's really neat to be able to show multimedia pieces like that. It's very fun. Yeah, it's very fun.
More questions?
So you all, like, when you're exploring themes of queerness in pieces that you're working on, does it feel to you think that as if the piece or the theme is joyful? Is it painful? Is it some juxtaposition of the two? Or is it observational, that you're just witnessing something in your own head? And has that changed in the last few years or over the course of your careers, like from one feeling to another while you're working on pieces?
Well, there's pain and joy in every picture. The ones, and I haven't done a lot of gay imagery per se, but I've taken a lot of joy in the ones that I did do. So the one I have downstairs, which is the little girl who wants to be a Boy Scout. The thing is that once it's done, you never know who it's going to mean what to. And it meant so much to one person, and she couldn't afford the price. She said, could I please have a poster? So I made a poster for her. And then the other one that I've done, the marriage license, the two lesbians getting married in Town Hall in Stockbridge. I needed to commemorate that day where gay marriage was made legal nationally. And so I felt really, really proud to do that. But I wasn't expecting that when it showed as some fine art, a man came up and said, I need this picture. I've got cancer. I'm only going to live a little while, but I have to have this picture now. And he bought it. And it's just something that you just take with you. That you did something that meant so much to somebody.
Yeah, it's a really interesting question, and it's I think that for me, it's always I think I just go between pleasure and pain when I'm making my work. I don't, there's no escaping, I think, a painful history, for transgender people and the invisibility and the loneliness of transgender men. I know I'm not alone in feeling this way as a transgender man in America. We're a unique group of people. There's not a lot of us, and I feel that pain. I feel the pain of the struggle of fear of coming out and disclosing versus not disclosing, and a lot of that, and the pain of being denied our childhood, of being our boyhood and our manhood, young manhood, and all those milestones in life. I was denied, and I bring that all to my work. I know I do. But on the flip side, when I see when I get to that point where I see the work that I had in my head and it's there in front of me, it is the greatest feeling in the world. And I know you share this. It's unbelievable. And it's like, I'll do anything to get there.
Yeah.
I can't
when it's
stop
there,
myself.
when it's done, you know you did it. It's just like,
so good.
Wow.
And it really, what I found is that,
and you can let it go.
That release lets go of a lot of the pain that I pour into my work. And so, the pain of not feeling like I'm in the right body, the pain of being told, no, you're wrong, you're a girl, all that pain, to see and get it released, it's really joyful. So it's a really interesting question.
For me, it's also,
go ahead, Nev, go ahead.
Also both joyful and painful at the same time, but it is more painful for me because when I was younger, I didn't define my art as a queer art, but I was telling my love story, so it's queer. And lesbian relationship is painful, and it is very painful. And also, gay marriage is not legal in my country yet, so it is.
So joyful and painful. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you.
Yes, sir?
Yeah. I have a problem with the word queer, actually, because I'm in my 70s too, 74. And most of my life, it meant something quite derogatory. It wasn't like, oh, it's rather queer, isn't it? So I'm wondering if you had a hard time getting over that and expressing yourself on something that was most of your life or my life, and if that was an obstacle in any way.
I want to go back to when I was a kid, and we were colored. We were colored. Now if you call somebody colored, it's like this insult. Then we were Negroes. Well, we were Negroes and colored at the same time. Then in the 60s, we were black. And it's like, you want to call me black? I'm not black, I'm brown. Why are you going to call me black? But everybody had to be black. And then black was wrong. And then you had to be African American. And then African American was too many syllables, and then it became, then it was Afro-American, but then that was a hairstyle. So it's like, labels are just so crazy. I just, as far as queer was terrible when I was young, and then it was gay, and then gay wasn't inclusive enough. So then you had to be LGBT, No, it was LGB, and it was LGBT, and then it was LBGTQ, and then there's LGBTQ plus, and it's just like, how many syllables are you supposed to say? Queer is fine. Just queer is just fine. If people call me queer, that's fine. Call me gay, whatever. The thing is that here I am, and I love a man for my romantic interest. Everything about me, everything else is just the same as you. Call me what you will. Here I am, and I'm going to be here, and all my brothers and sisters are going to be here too. Call us queer, whatever you want to call us, but just call us with respect and love in your heart.
Yeah, it's a really interesting question. I mean, it really is. I think it took me a minute to, if I think of the word homosexuality, that, people would use that in a derogatory, you homosexuals,
Yeah.
I mean, you can take any word, and use it in a negative way. I think, or you can take any word and reclaim it as your own, as a community and spin it and say, yes, I am queer. And, I think, so it's sort of an interesting question. I think I've landed on, and your point is right, they moved it from LGB to LGBT for me, for trans people, and this
but that wasn't enough. That wasn't enough.
Fact, and it's just an interesting, but that it wasn't enough, and that what's happened in the queer community is, we want to embrace everyone, and so in a lot of, then a lot of ways, it's opened it up, to so many different diverse gender expressions and just people on a different spectrum of sexual orientation and things of that nature. And so then it has sort of, what do we call ourselves?
I think it's a good one. I think queer is good.
It's a really good one. Is what I
because we're reclaiming it for ourselves right now, and it's one syllable.
It's so much, and it's all of us. And if you want to be wherever you fall, if you then be queer, and I think so. But it's an interesting question from back in the day.
But it does kind of sting, for somebody who used to be around, and to be queer was like the worst thing you could possibly be.
Sure. It's a really interesting question.
Yeah, I'm trying to adapt to the new.
Try it out. Say maybe I'm queer and fabulous, and see how see if it sits with you for a minute, or maybe it might not be for you.
Peculiar.
Yeah.
Do you think
I think even if it was bad meaning back in the days, I think it's good to we own the word and use it in a good way. Yeah, it's good.
You remember at some point, when was it, when that we're here, we're queer, we're fabulous, get used to it? Who said that?
That was when the AIDS crisis.
In the 80s and 90s?
It was the AIDS crisis.
I think I was in Washington marching when I first heard that.
Yeah,
people
that was
chanting,
ACT UP.
We're here, we're queer, we're fabulous.
ACT UP came up with that.
So that was ACT UP?
Yeah.
So that was in the early 90s. And so I think, that was really when people started to maybe signal a change that we were going to try to reclaim this as people. And it's been a long battle, but I do think as more and more syllables get added, the queer umbrella is probably the best way for us to find a community within each other.
Right. I mean, I like gay the most, but then some people take exception, I'm not gay, I'm trans, I'm not gay, I'm a lesbian or whatever, so queer works.
I mean, your question is a great question because it brings up painful history, and also I hear in the answers is how we're navigating that and reclaiming that and owning, actually still getting to be proud of who we are. And to me, it's also like this little armor piece, like you can say it, I'm like, or about the sting doesn't happen anymore.
Right.
So, yeah.
Any final questions?
One last question, wrap up.
Okay.
We did it.
You did it. You did it. Everybody did. Thanks so much, y'all.
Thank you all. Thank you.
Thank you.